All right. Thank you all for joining us today. Good morning, good afternoon, depends where you are located. Really appreciate you participating in this, our third of our 2022 Lunch and Learns. My name is Barb Clark, and I am the Training and Exercise Manager for the Intermountain Center for Disaster Preparedness here in Salt Lake City, Utah. And for those of you who are new to our organization, the ICDP is a training and education center. We not only provide educational opportunities like we're doing here today, but we also create drills and exercises for organizations. We do research into the latest in disaster preparedness, and we help organizations with their disaster plans. We at the ICDP hope that you and your family are staying safe and healthy as we are going into or halfway into our third year of this pandemic. We hope that you are enjoying these virtual presentations, and someday soon, hopefully we'll get back to doing in person. And when we do that, we will actually be doing these as hybrid classes. So those of you who are not local can still continue to participate in our programs. If you registered for this class prior to 8 o'clock this morning, you should have received a link for the Survey Monkey. I sent that out yesterday, I believe, with the another link for this presentation. So if you have not gotten that Survey Monkey link, I will put it in the chat. And I hope that you can take just a couple minutes at the end of this presentation to fill out that survey. We are sponsored by Intermountain Health and also by an ASPR grant, and it really helps for them to see what we're doing and how people respond to the courses that we put together. So a little bit of housekeeping. If your computer is not on mute, although I just muted all of you, please keep it on mute throughout the course. You're welcome to keep your video feed on or turn it off depending on your preference. I am recording this presentation and it will be set up on our YouTube channel probably by tomorrow. So if you have colleagues that are not able to join us today, they can go in and watch that on the YouTube channel as well. If you're watching with a group, please put in the chat the names of everyone in your group so that I can give them credit for attending. And if you're just using a nickname on your video feed, please make sure that you change that so that I can tell who you are. If I don't recognize your photo or your blank screen, please make sure that you have your full name on there so I can give you credit. And then if you want a certificate for your participation, please email me and let me know that. You all should have my email address, but I will also put that in the chat in case you don't. Like I said before, this is part of a series. This course is part of a series, and our next Lunch and Learn will be on Wednesday, July 27th, same time, 11:30 to 1300 Mountain Time. And we will be presenting the Surfside Champlain Tower Collapse, a Canine Handler's Perspective, with the Pennsylvania Task Force's canine handler, Phil Colvin. So hopefully you can join us for that. And if you're not on our mailing list and you would like to join us, please send me your email and I'll make sure that you get the registration information. Okay, that's it for all of the announcements. Let's proceed without further ado. We are fortunate today to have two of FEMA's program specialists with us. Rachel Neal is a senior program manager at the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, in the Individual and Community Preparedness Division. Ms. Neal advises on and supports the agency's development and implementation of educational programs and resources for the whole community. She is directly responsible for building a resilient nation. In her previous role with FEMA, Ms. Neal was a budget analyst for the chief financial officer. She has also worked in both exercise and policy shops in the FEMA National Preparedness Directorate. And in her free time, Ms. Neal is a volunteer EMT for Fairfax County, Virginia. And also joining us today is, I'm sorry, all I could think was banana. Shanna Shabinsky. She's an emergency management specialist. Sorry, guys, when she told me how to say her name, she said it rhymes with banana. So my apologies for that diversion from protocol here. Shanna is a emergency management specialist at FEMA, where she works in disaster preparedness with youth. She coordinates FEMA's Youth Preparedness Council, a program through which FEMA engages with young adults in order to solicit their perspectives, opinions, and feedbacks about helping their communities get ready for disasters. Prior to joining FEMA, Shanna has worked with people who have fled from disasters, both in the US and abroad, with the International Rescue Committee. In her spare time, she volunteers as an instructor for English language and citizenship classes. Please join me as we welcome Rachel and Shannon. So all yous, guys.
Thanks, Barb. Hello, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are, as Barb said. Today we are going to talk about the importance of young people in promoting and sustaining Ready FEMA, but for you all, the more important one is Ready and Prepared Nation. As Barb mentioned, my name is Rachel, and I am a senior program manager at ICPD, which is not the same as Barb's ICDP. So that acronym was very fun to explain to my leadership. And in that shop, we develop and implement educational preparedness programs and resources for everyone. Obviously, we do it for youth as well, which is why we are here today. And Shanna is on the line on the video. And as mentioned, she is the YPC, as we affectionately call it, the Youth Preparedness Council Program Manager. Let me see, there we go. So today, Shannon and I are going to be giving you guys a rundown of why our agency has decided to invest in youth preparedness, how we do that, and why you all should also invest in youth preparedness. And then lastly, we won't leave you all empty-handed. We are going to present to you all the suite of our youth preparedness resources. That is curriculum, fact sheets, activity books, card games, coloring books, and all of those resources you can actually either download digitally or order hard copy in various languages for distribution in your communities for free. So that'll be the nice little golden nugget there. So today we're going to talk about why preparedness. Of all of the phases of a disaster, response, recovery, mitigation, why does our office have such a passion for preparedness? Well, aside from the fact that it is our job, we actually believe that preparedness saves lives. And I don't think I'm overselling that. A couple of years ago, my now husband and I were on an international trip. We were out in Japan visiting a friend of ours who was stationed out there for the Marines. And we chartered this boat on our last day in Okinawa. And it took us out to go snorkeling and boating and fishing and all those fun activities. And as we packed up the boat to head home, the water changed almost instantaneously. If any of you guys are history buffs, where the area that we were was actually where Genghis Khan lost his entire fleet of ships. And that's where the term kamikaze winds is actually coined, because the weather and the winds changed so quickly there. And in a matter of seconds, our boat was belly up in the middle of the Pacific. And not everyone had life vests. We weren't able to call Mayday on the radar or on the radio before that boat went under. And it's actually because I had a go bag with a satellite radio cell phone in it that we were able to call emergency services. And I say emergency services, not 911, because in Japan it is not 911. It's 118 for land and 114 for sea, I believe. And we're able to let them know where we were, and they actually sent the Japanese Coast Guard to come and pick us up via Black Hawk 4 hours after 4 hours of floating in the water. So preparedness saves lives. I can honestly say that if I did not have that go bag, if we did not have that satellite cell phone, and if we didn't know what the 911 alternative was for Japan, I would not be here today. So I don't think that it is overstating or overselling that preparedness saves lives. On the slide here, we've got this great bullet. Emergency management is collaborative and tiered. For any of you who are in the field of emergency management, I'm hoping that you agree with that. If you are not in the field of emergency management, when we say it's collaborative and tiered, what we mean by that is that most disasters begin and end locally, and it's the local officials that best understand the unique needs and opportunities and risks of their communities. So the larger and more complex the disaster becomes, and the greater number and the variety of partners and resources that are needed, that's when the system sort of elevates, and we, being FEMA or the state, show up to support those local officials. At FEMA, we always say the best disaster is the one that is federally supported, state managed, and locally executed. And that is because FEMA does not know your community. You all know your community. All right, I am going to pass the mic over to Shanna to talk to you guys about why youth preparedness.
Excellent, thank you, Rachel. So hi, everyone. Again, I'm Shanna, and I work with Rachel at FEMA. I don't have a boat-sinking Black Hawk preparedness story for you, but I am going to talk with you a little bit about what underlies our youth preparedness work at FEMA. We're beginning with the question of why youth preparedness is so important. Our agency has long emphasized the important role that youth play in building a resilient nation. Programs like Citizen Corps from 2003 and America's Preparathon from 2008 were some of our earlier efforts to engage individuals and communities. These efforts specifically included elements or components which allowed children to be involved through their participating family members. This made the family as a unit more prepared. In 2008, Congress chartered the National Commission on Children and Disasters to provide an official forum for people interested in children's particular needs and interests. One important purpose of this commission was to conduct a comprehensive study to examine and assess the needs of children as they relate to, prepare for, respond to, and recover from all hazards. The commission offered research-based recommendations for considering children's specific needs during disasters. These findings are grouped into 11 themes, which include things like disaster management and recovery, mental health, child physical health and trauma, emergency medical services, and pediatric transport. Today, equity is the major priority of both the current administration and FEMA's 2022 to 2026 strategic plan. This effort is anchored by an executive order that outlined 9 groups of historically underserved populations. And while children are not specifically defined as a historically underserved community, FEMA recognizes that children are members of a majority of the communities that are listed, and therefore at risk in most of these groups. In the near future, ICPD, that's us, our division, will release an update to our 2018 Historically Underserved Communities Report. We know that everyone receives and understands information differently, so the purpose of this report is to highlight ways in which we can better communicate with historically underserved communities. Next slide, please, Rachel. All right, next, why does FEMA invest in youth preparedness? First, preparing our nation's youth protects the future. So children make up about 1/4 of the population, but they're 100% of our future. We know that many children are impacted by disasters. In fact, almost 14% of children and teens have experienced a disaster during their lifetime, and 4% have experienced a disaster within the past year. Of those who have experienced a disaster, 1/4 reported experiencing more than one. We also know that preparing youth helps both during and after a disaster. When youth prepare and practice for an emergency, it improves their ability to take immediate and informed action during a disaster. Participation in things like group discussions, drills, exercises, and training helps establish behavior patterns to support quick and effective action during an emergency. This also empowers youth to recover more quickly. Next, when trained, children are capable actors in an emergency. Every day, approximately 63 million children are away from their families and homes for daycare or school. This means that we can't always rely on adult members of a household to take care of their children during a disaster. So training youth is important. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends including age-appropriate life support training for children, which means things like teaching young children how to seek assistance for victims, teaching CPR to older children, and teaching adolescents how to use CPR and AEDs. FEMA's youth preparedness programs add to this training by encouraging youth to engage in preparedness actions, which increases their belief that they can make a difference, self-efficacy. This positively influences their actions, their preparedness readiness, and their resilience. Finally, youth are a prime channel to reach households with preparedness messaging. Children are a trusted source of information and act as good messengers, especially in households where English is not the primary language. According to the 2016 National Household Survey, households with school-age children who brought home preparedness materials were significantly more likely to report preparing than those who did not receive any materials. And further, when school children brought home preparedness materials, households were more likely to believe that they knew what to do in case of several different types of disasters. All right, next slide, please, Rachel.
Actually, Shanna, do you want to touch really quickly on gamification?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So gamification improves retention and can increase adoption of preparedness and emergency response behavior. So we like that as a way to sort of get people to think better and more deeply about emergency response and what they'll do in dangerous situations. So youth are more likely to take preparedness actions learned through interactive activities, especially games. Games, including serious games, can increase retention of information, promote changes in behavior, and adoption of healthy behaviors. And practicing improves basic knowledge of emergency plans, perceptions of abilities and teamwork, and reduces levels of stress associated with helping in an emergency. Thanks for pointing that one out, Rachel. That will be important when we talk about our products.
Well,
right?
you know, if the kids are going to be glued in front of the TV screen playing games, we might as well have them learning, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, now on to the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so how does FEMA invest in youth preparedness? FEMA's youth preparedness portfolio strategy is underpinned by a desire to help young people build lifelong preparedness skills that they take into adulthood, to leverage children and youth as force multipliers, and to capitalize on their status as trusted messengers within their families and communities to spread our preparedness messaging. Before I pass the mic back over to Rachel to talk about all of the exciting programs we have here, I'm going to talk briefly about the first program on the list, which is the Youth Preparedness Council, or the YPC. I happen to be the National YPC coordinator, so it makes sense for me to say a few things about this. So move on to the next slide, Rachel. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my clicker's being a little stubborn. There you go.
It's because the YPC is so exciting, we needed to pause for a moment before we begin. So the YPC, the Youth Preparedness Council, or the YPC, one of the biggest programs in our youth portfolio is the YPC. This is a group of young people from 8th to 12th grades who are passionate about emergency preparedness and about making a difference in their communities. The purpose of the YPC is to provide young people with an opportunity to learn about emergency management, to develop professional skills, and to share their perspectives with us at FEMA. And that's actually my favorite part of this job, is that we get to hear from young people about how they think we should be thinking and talking about preparedness messages. I am the coordinator for the national YPC, and we draw members from across the country. But many of FEMA's 10 regions also have regional YPCs. So the YPC broadly is kind of like a network of young people across the country who work to make their communities stronger. National YPC members do a whole range of things, including developing a project to help further preparedness across the country. Examples of past projects have included things like initiating teen community emergency response teams, CERT teams, leading mass casualty exercises, creating preparedness videos, and hosting preparedness webinars. So lots of different things they do to try to help us reach their peers and also other members of their community. YPC members have also spoken at conferences, received media attention, and generally helped to elevate awareness of youth preparedness. Go YPC. Now I am going to pass the mic or the baton, whatever we're passing, back to Rachel to give you a rundown of some of the other programs we have.
Yeah, absolutely. So really quickly before I sort of go through our suite of resources, obviously thank you, Shanna, for going through the data points as to why FEMA has prioritized youth preparedness over the last couple years. I think it's important to acknowledge what happened in our country yesterday. You know, we're not necessarily talking about protecting youth with our resources, but empowering youth with our resources to be able to take action to possibly save a life, to possibly save themselves. And I think that, you know, I would just be remiss if I didn't acknowledge, you know, what happened in Texas, particularly because we are talking about youth preparedness here today. So I mentioned that the the nature of emergency management is hierarchical and tiered. And I want to emphasize really quickly before I go into these resources why that is such an incredibly important concept for people to understand. It's important for folks to understand that emergency management is tiered because it implores that each individual, household, and community have a personal responsibility to take action and to prepare themselves. And the question we get often a lot is, got it, I understand that I have to play a part, but how can I get prepared? How can we become prepared? And for those of you who are emergency managers on the line, and even if you aren't an emergency manager and you're just an advocate for preparedness, or you work in the field of emergency management, you can help individuals and communities prepare in sort of three main ways. One is raising risk awareness. What are my local hazards? Two is educating in risk reduction options. So I understand I have a risk, but what can I do to mitigate this now? And here's a suite of things that I can do, so I know I've got options. And then third, you can help them take action. So I am going to actually do X, Y, or Z to help mitigate this hazard. Folks understanding that process and their role in that system really does help us put response and recovery, sorry Barb, with your USAR teams, put y'all out of business. The greatest example I have of that is, what if you have a kitchen fire and you have a fire extinguisher? Hopefully you know how to use said fire extinguisher and you can put out that kitchen fire, no problem. But let's say your child is cooking at home by themselves for the first time, being a big kid, and they have the fire extinguisher and they don't know how to use it. And they try to put that fire out, and lo and behold, it's not working. They can't pull the pin. The fire extinguisher is expired, so it's not working. Maybe they're pointing it at the flame instead of the base. All those fun firefighter facts. So what do? They call 911. And when they call 911, who comes? Spoiler alert, it is not FEMA. It is the local first responders. And hopefully they have the resources and the tools and the time to put that fire out before it turns into a house fire. We saw this with many of the California wildfires where that small fire was unable to be contained at those lower levels. So the local first responders had to call in additional resources from neighboring counties. And when those collection of counties did not have the resources to put out the fire, they had to go to their state and so on and so forth. So truly, if we can get individuals and young people prepared to respond to the disaster emergency in their home or the one that is right in front of them, hopefully that means that all of those other players in the system of emergency management don't have to get called in to help resolve the situation. So individuals who are prepared are way more self-sufficient, and most importantly, they are resilient. And again, I'm going to say this one more time, it does save lives. So as Shanna mentioned and promised, I'm going to go through some of our resources with you all, because these are just fantastic ways that you can take, or fantastic ways you can take from seemingly scary topic like an emergency or disaster and talk to your family, your children, maybe your students if you're a teacher, maybe you're a Girl Scout teacher or Boy Scout. I guess it's not a teacher, it's a troop leader. And you can take this information to those young people and help empower them to feel confident in a disaster or an emergency. And more importantly, they can take this stuff home to amplify the preparedness of the household, because they've shared this with mom, dad, grandma, aunt, uncle, brother, sister, dog, you name it. All right, so Prepare with Pedro, the lovely penguin on the screen. He is one of our more popular products. So Prepare with Pedro is a kindergarten through second grade youth preparedness program that we created in partnership with American Red Cross. We did not previously have preparedness content for this younger age group until good old Pedro came around. So this opportunity allows us as a division to expand our portfolio to youth preparedness learning for a younger your audience without obligating additional resources. We now have the activity books that are on this screen, and the storybooks actually were just rolled out a couple weeks ago, and we are coming out with a fridge magnet game, which I'm just now learning that fridges actually are not magnetic like they used to be. So you can play it on the dishwasher instead, because dishwashers are still magnetic. And all of these resources feature our favorite friend Pedro, and walk your child through how he becomes prepared with his friends on different hazards. So again, very child-friendly way to expose your child to some protective actions and steps they can take to keep themselves safe. And I see Natalie used to teach Prepare with Pedro. Wonderful. Yes, we've expanded from just the coloring book. We've got a lot of Pedro resources now. All right. The next resource that we have is called our Student Tools for Emergency Planning, or STEP. Very nifty acronym, I know. So STEP is a classroom-based emergency preparedness curriculum for 4th and 5th graders. And it's designed in this easy, ready-to-teach way. It has videos, it has activities, it even has homework. So you don't have to get creative with what you're going to send home. It's all about learning, you figured it out, through disasters, emergencies, hazards, how to create a disaster supply kit and that family emergency communication plan. STEP has 3 core lessons, and the best part about this curriculum is it can be taught in less than 30 minutes, and even within that 30 minutes, there's plug and play curriculum. So if you're an educator and you've got 15 minutes to spare, pull out something really quick from that STEP curriculum, and you can teach your kids or the students that you can teach your students something great and specific about severe weather, earthquake, fire, flood, pandemic emergencies. And let me tell you guys, the amount of times that the best practices for an earthquake has changed is mind-boggling. I didn't realize that until I came to this shop. It used to be, stand in a door frame, and for a while it was get in the bathtub. Now it is stop, drop, cover, and hold on. So that curriculum goes through those sort of quick, kitschy ways to educate your students on how to stay safe during all kinds of disasters. And the best part is, I think I might have said the best part twice now. There's a lot of best parts, is included with a YouTube video series, and they feature the Disaster Dodgers, which are young children just trying to educate other young children on being prepared. And there is a dance called the Prep Step, and I definitely know the Prep Step. I've had to whip it out a time or two, and it's just a really fun way, like I said, to educate youth and young people on how to prepare. Okay, you are the help until help arrives. This program was designed to educate and empower the public to take action in emergency situations and provide that life-saving care before professional arrives. The title kind of says it all. If you witness a car accident or some sort of medical emergency or shooting, you might be the first person on scene. It's going to take time for 911 to be called and for those emergency responders to arrive on site. And as a first responder myself, I can tell you that the #1 cause of death or preventable cause of death in the United States is hemorrhaging, bleeding out. So the You Are the Help Until Help Arrives actually is a curriculum that teaches a whole slew of best practices, but it is really heavily focused on that stop the bleed, because minutes matter when you have a hemorrhaging emergency. So this isn't necessarily for your elementary level youth, but it is a great training for young adults. This online instruction also has some in-person components, And participants are trained, like I said, to take action through very simple steps that can potentially save a life. So we're not going in there teaching people how to, pack a wound and layer all, the gauze on and tape and then stabilize it. Like we're not doing that. It's just a couple simple steps that can be taken to help save a life. And it is a 2.5-hour instructor-led course with a 30-minute web-based training and interactive video. All right, ready to help. This is another one of our festive games. It is a card game for children's ages 8 to 12. It is modeled after You Are the Help Until Help Arrives. So that curriculum I mentioned before, that's not necessarily elementary school level. This is actually an elementary school level version of that. It's a fun card game. Evidence shows that teaching these life-saving skills, even before children can perform that skill reliably, can actually improve self-efficiency. So learning objectives for Ready to Help are based off of developmentally appropriate skills, as I mentioned, that have sort of been endorsed by HHS and the Maternal and Child Health Bureau. So good stuff with good people, and I think it's a really great program and a super fun game. All right, Teen CERT. So Shanna mentioned the CERT program a little bit in one of her presentations, but CERT stands for Community Emergency Response Team. Oh, great, Barb, I see that you teach the You Are the Health Until Help Arrives. Perfect. If you are a member of your CERT team, please put in the chat where your CERT team is located. I am from Fairfax County, Virginia, part of that CERT team, so I proudly wear the green hat and vest. Okay. Ooh, we got some Weber County, Utah. Any other CERT team members on the line? All right. Well, hopefully this just means that you're not 100% sure, but if you want to be an opportunity, we're talking about Teen CERT in this training because this is about young people, but CERT is not exclusive to teens. It definitely expands to every individual in the community. Thanks, Shanna, for putting the link in there. Ooh, Lisa, way back to 1998. Nice. Okay, so the CERT team program, in a shocking turn of events, educates teen volunteers about disaster preparedness for the hazards that may impact their area. And it trains them in basic disaster response skills, such as fire safety. I mentioned that fire extinguisher example earlier on. You'd be surprised how many people say they have a fire extinguisher, but then when disaster strikes, they don't know where the pin is to pull it. They don't know where to point the nozzle. So this program teaches all of those skills, as well as light search and rescue, which is really exciting. If you're a young person and you're being asked to do such a strenuous and just very intense activity, I know that I really enjoyed the opportunity to kind of go into buildings and find the patient and put them on a backboard and pull them out. Team organization, and then disaster medical operations. So that's a little bit heftier than the Stop the Bleed training. You're going to actually be doing some best practices for packing a wound, etc., in the CERT program. All right. Clicking the next button. Whoop. And there we go. Okay, so the next slide is all about ready.gov, specifically ready.gov/kids. So ready.gov, as you saw on the screen here, we've got the English version and the Spanish version, which is listos. Actually, it shouldn't say ready.gov, check, it should say listos.gov. And there's sort of 4 key things that we ask individuals to do or to take away from their navigating around ready.gov. One is to stay informed about the different types of emergencies that could occur and what the appropriate response should be to that emergency. The second is to make a family emergency plan. If your house catches on fire and mom's evacuating through the front and dad's evacuating through the back and the dog's evacuating through the garage, where are y'all going to meet around that house. That is so important. Building an emergency supply kit. I already told you guys a story about my go bag, as I like to call it, but that's a variation of the emergency supply kit. And then fourth, get involved in your community by taking action to prepare for emergencies. So if you're sorting through ready.gov or leasethos.gov, those are sort of the four main things that you'll take away from the content on those pages. On the screen is example of the communication plan. You can download that as a PDF to fill out, or as I mentioned earlier, you can order it from our warehouse to download and fill out hard copy. I'm a hard copy girl, so I am here for that. And this comms plan is great because you can fold it out and put it in your purse, your wallet. You can put it on your fridge. You can put it in your backpack. It's a nice little convenient foldable. It's like a business card size. It's very cute. And it's also been translated into numerous different languages. So if English is not your primary language and traditional Chinese is, or Spanish, you can get a copy with that same information translated in that language for you. All right, IS 36. So IS, if you are familiar with that, is the independent study course, Preparedness for Child Care Providers. So this is not specifically for youth, obviously, it's for the child care providers, but it's online training for adults who are responsible for the care of youth. So our Preparedness for Child Care Providers is that independent study course for child care providers to include home daycare centers, child care facilities, nursing school, camps, scouts, sports programs, faith-based programs, after-school programs. It's kind of a one-stop shop. If you are caring for children, this is a great preparedness and planning resource for you. Just to name a few benefits of this course, once it is completed, the participant will be able to identify the threats and hazards that impact that particular childcare site, describe how to prevent or mitigate the impact of those likely or high consequence hazards and threats, and then be able to describe the procedures for when emergency occurs. Something that's not in this program, but that is enforced in this program: practice, practice, practice. You can put those plans together, but if you're not practicing them, you're not doing those fire drills, you're relying pretty heavily on a conversation you may have had, 2 years prior to an incident. So definitely practice those plans. And this course is going to help create the plans or help you create the plan for your facility. And then last but not least, we talk a lot about community preparedness and the importance of integrating the needs of children into your community plan. So this is a workshop, a community-based workshop that promotes planning, coordination, and the integration of children's needs during emergencies, because children cannot be an afterthought in a disaster. The stakes are just too high. So again, kind of that module curriculum style. There's 7 lessons as well as a wrap-up module, and it accommodates a wide range of schedules and challenges. So kind of like the STEP curriculum where you could do it in 30 minutes, you could do it in 15 minutes. This one also has truncated curriculum. So you could do a full day, a 2-day, a 3-day course, as well as virtual facilitations. So if you're in a position to provide this training to your community, it's definitely worthwhile. And then last but not least, our lovely warehouse. So this is where we store all of the hard copies of our content. And y'all get to order it for free if you want to hand some out at a community fair, to a class, if you work at your local fire department. I know my fire department always hands out fireman hats. I got some Prepare with Pedros, and now we hand out a Pedro with a fire hat. So there's always ways to embed preparedness in the spot where you are going to meet the community member. Not everyone's going to sign up for Barb's wonderful webinars, but there will be a lot of people that are going to go to the carnival in town. So bringing those resources to meet them is a great way to inject preparedness and youth preparedness into your community. So on this screen, there's the link for how to get to our warehouse order page, and then you can just put your information in, select what the publication is that you are looking to get a copy of, and hopefully it'll be there in 2 to 3 weeks, although you never know with the mail these days, but it still is no cost to you, which is, I think, one of the best options, or best selling features, I should say. So that is all that we have for you today. But I do wanted to open the floor for questions. Lisa, I knew someone was going to ask this question. The FEMA publication site shows many of the popular items out of stock. Do you know when they will be restocked? That is the golden question. So we are a very small shop of about 25 people creating preparedness resources for the whole nation. So I would just ask that you continue to check back on the site. We are constantly trying to shift funding here and there to keep that warehouse as in stock as possible. So the best answer I have for you is just to please keep looking and be patient, but don't forget that all of that stuff is available for download as well. So I know for me that I've been a little bit of a pickle, and the 12 ways to prepare resource has been out, and I was able to print them at my office and still have something to hand out. Thank you for putting the link in the chat, Barb.
Rachel, I'm sorry, this is Lisa. Is it
Yes.
okay if we take the electronic format of that and take it to someplace like Kinko's to do some nicer copying of it than just on
Sure.
our business copiers?
Yeah, that's totally
Okay.
fine. We have a print shop, so I can print it on nice cardstock. But yeah, you're definitely able to do that if that's something that you'd like to do.
Thank
and
you.
that's a very creative option, of course. Any other questions?
Rachel, I actually had a question for Shanna.
Sure.
You talked about the statistics of how many children experience disasters. What year was that, and has it gone up in the last year or so?
You know what, that is a great question. I'm just looking back here to see if I've got a date attached. And if I don't, which it doesn't look like I have the citation in my talking points, but I can look into that and get back to you.
Okay,
That's a really
I was just
interesting question.
curious if it included any of the COVID,
No.
diseases.
These numbers are pre-COVID. So as I'm sure you can imagine, they are probably much higher now.
Yeah, and I know a lot of places don't include that in disaster because that's more public health, but some stats do. So I was just curious. And then I had one other quick question for either of you. When you're talking about, the shooting yesterday, which I'm still trying to get my head around, do you guys offer any kind of psychological first aid type courses for youth?
Yes. So for Shanna, do you want to? You see you nodding. Did you want to answer?
I'm nodding because it's what everyone is talking about, right? So this is an area that we're super interested in at the moment, and trying to think about how to develop content here. So everyone from my YPC members up through like folks in our division and above our division, everybody is interested in this right now. So I don't know, Rachel, I don't have a specific example of something we have right now.
So two things come to mind. The first is we do have a resource called Helping Children Cope, and I apologize, I was actually supposed to be on this presentation and it was not. Let me pull it and put it in the chat box so that you guys can take a look at that. That's definitely one of our resources that can be used in sort of that mental first aid space. And then the other resource is actually a Prepare with Pedro resource. And it's, oh goodness gracious, I'd love to go on the webpage to see what the exact name of it is. But it is in alignment with Helping Children Cope, which is an adult curriculum, and the Pedro version is for children. And that is not a hard copy thing that we have in the warehouse, but it is something that is available for download on American Red Cross's under Pedro, their webpage. And I say it's on their page and not ours because that resource was created solely by American Red Cross before FEMA came in to co-brand other pager resources. And I will continue to look for the link for both of those for you all and put them in the chat.
I put the Helping Children Cope link to that publication in the chat now. You see that one there.
Thank you, Shanna. And I will pull the Pedro one right now.
Everybody loves Pedro.
Yes, well, he's just a really cool penguin, you know?
A cool penguin, Rachel.
Cool penguin.
No pun intended, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and penguins are my favorite animal. So between preparedness being a passion of mine and Pedro, the penguin, being my favorite animal, this was just a real nice fit for me professionally.
Right.
Oh, Natalie, I see your comment in the chat about wearing a penguin costume. That's so good.
All right, so the link to, so it's called Prepare with Pedro, Resilience and Coping Skills. And like all the other Pedro products, it's available, oh goodness, this looks like it's in about 10 different languages. So I'll put the link in the box, and what y'all will have to do is just scroll down the page and click on that particular resource. I can't send just the resource, unfortunately.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Well, I hope that this was helpful for everyone. I don't think I need to necessarily sell you guys on why preparing our nation's youth is so important, but it is something that Shanna and I are very, very passionate about, and we've put a lot of heart and soul into creating really what we hope is really good content for you all to take and use, whether it's for your own children and your own family, whether it's for the students that you teach, what have you. So if you have any other questions or things that pop up between now and whenever, feel free to reach out to myself and Shanna, and we will keep you in the loop.
All right. Well, great. Thank you so much, you guys. This was wonderful information. And I love that we have some tangible items to share with everyone. So appreciate that as well. I will download the chat and pull some of these links out and send an email to everyone so you have the links as well in case you are interested. So anyway, Rachel, great to see you again. Shanna, thanks so much. Great to meet you. And I don't think I mentioned it in your intro, but Shanna does have a relationship with Utah. She grew up here and went to school here and has family that still lives here. So welcome back virtually.
I wish we could be there in person. Maybe next time.
We wish you could too. Someday we'll get back to that, I'm sure. So again, I'm going to stop the